Now we're in Module 11E. This time we're going to focus on building creativity. What can you do to build creativity as a practical skill in the workplace? Not everybody thinks creativity is a skill you can cultivate, but let me tell you, everybody is creative. We used to believe we were creative. When we were little, everybody thought they were creative, but through years of school where we learn that we have to give the teacher the right answer on the test, we learn that we need to comply. And we have this whole culture built around this culture of compliance as a result of this. So our mission, our job, our future relies on us bringing that creativity out of people who are working in this world of compliance. So here's a couple ways that we can think about doing that. So here's some secrets to reigniting that creativity. Number one is you just got to believe that you are actually creative. There are so many people who don't believe they are, but all you got to do is ask them if they've ever had an idea and then convince them that they are, in fact, creative. So start talking to people in terms of the value they bring because of the potential they have to have wonderful ideas about the work that they're doing. Go out there, build those relationships, encourage those people, convince them they're creative, and you'll see wonderful things happen. Make a point of not judging any idea too quickly. Build some systems at work that enhance self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is a type of confidence that people feel about their ability to do a particular task. So we want to design work that makes people more confident about that work. And one of the outcomes of a higher self-efficacy is going to be more ideas. They're much more willing to try new things. They're much more willing to improve things on their own. And if they run into obstacles, they're much more likely to persist through that failure rather than just give up and walk off. So it's pretty critical. I'll talk more about this in a future module. We also want to employ structures that require creativity. Things like that five whys to five ways is a structure that requires creativity. And then all you really need to do is ask for more creativity or build this expectation for creativity. And all of these things will help you start seeing more ideas flow through your organization. But if you don't have the systems and you don't have the structures in place, all these ideas are going to come and you're not going to be able to keep up with them. So you're going to feel overwhelmed and you're going to end up stopping it. And that'll be the biggest failure you've ever experienced. So here's a little creative exercise I want you to do with a classmate of yours. And there's a lot of writing on this, so you can pause here and read through this. But pair up with a classmate that you've done some things with in the past, and just briefly share your most creative experiences. If you don't think you're very creative, it's going to require some creativity just to do this, but either way, you're going to win. So please be willing to work with more than one other peer to ensure that everybody can participate. I'll build this into a discussion board. Once you've shared with each other, write about your experience on the discussion board, then work together with some of your other classmates to decide which ones are the coolest and which ones are the most boring, so we can have a little fun with that. So let's talk about judging too quickly. What do you think really makes a good idea? I promise you that the vast majority of ideas that people have are going to suck, okay? I have fantastic amounts of ideas. I like to think they're all great ideas, but I know that they're not. I know that the vast majority of my ideas are not going to work well. The same is going to be true for you, and the same is going to be true for your people. But just because it's a bad idea doesn't mean we can't get some great value from that as a developmental activity. Even if somebody has a bad idea, when we take them through this evaluation methodology, this C4 process, they're going to be able to see for themselves that it isn't such a great idea without you judging them. And when you judge somebody's idea, you immediately build some resentment. Even if they agree with you, the fact that you rejected their idea, that plants a seed of resentment in their brain. So what makes a good idea? There's really only two things. Number one, it solves a problem. So the idea actually works. That makes it a good idea. Some you won't know until you actually run an experiment. So even if you think it's a bad idea, it might be just the perfect thing that's going to work. If it works, it's a good idea by definition. The other one is if you can't actually implement it or experiment with it, the field of experts you bring together can decide whether, oh yeah, that's a good idea worth pursuing. Now, where we run into problems with this is we'll create a committee in our company and they evaluate all the ideas. And that's not really what I want to get out of this. The idea is the lever for us to teach problem solving skills and creativity to our individual teammates. So I don't want to send the idea off to some engineering team or some management task force that's supposed to be handling all the ideas. That idea is processed between the team member and their team leader, or maybe the team member and a coach assigned by the team leader or the supervisor. Again, it's not about the idea itself, it's about what you do with that idea that makes it valuable or not. Some barriers to good ideas. The first one, not have enough bad ideas. So you got to get people to share their ideas no matter what, and they got to feel free from fear in order to share those ideas. So we got to get more bad ideas so we can pull some of the good ones out of there. One of the biggest factors is prejudgment of the idea by the idea generator herself. So when she has an idea, she tells herself that, oh, that's a bad idea, it'll never work, that just, if I tell anybody, it sounds stupid. So we're going to be combating that as leaders all the time by demanding people continue to share these things and then protecting them from that kind of harsh judgment from their peers or from their management system. Another thing that kills good ideas, premature judgment by other people, or premature judgment especially by the leaders or the experts. And the last thing is, if you don't have time to cultivate the idea or to develop that idea, some ideas that sound really bad up front actually turn out to be pretty good once you get into the details about how to do it. One of my favorite stories is the story of how NASA decided to put the Mars rover onto the surface of the planet of Mars. So you can just see in your mind this brainstorming session that they were having. And, you know, all of us have this experience as kids of seeing cartoons of aliens landing on our planet or another planet. We always see this rocket coming down and kind of landing on its fins and then the ladder coming out. So it lands upright, kind of like, you know, Elon Musk's does now. But that's just the way we've been taught to land on a planet. Even when we did land on another heavenly body, when we landed on the moon, we had the lunar module that had its legs and just kind of and landed on the moon, legs down. So can you imagine the response when somebody said, hey, why don't we put it in a big beach ball and just drop it and let it bounce? When it stops bouncing, we'll have some way that it breaks open and we have some way to right the robot and off it goes. That is nothing like what everybody knows about getting something on the surface of another planet. And yet, they put it in the big airbags and it worked like a charm. So avoid prejudging any idea until we get a chance to cultivate it a little bit, until we get a chance to make it grow. Some structures that are going to require creativity. 3 that I've got in mind are this idea management system, which is a suggestion system without the suggestion box. Okay, and I'll talk more about it a little bit later, but you can see this is a board that shows the flow of ideas. Ideas are captured on these cards, and we kind of take them through several different stages as we evaluate those ideas where everybody can see it. Another one is building this habit of rigorous problem solving, really requiring 5 whys to 5 ways, and then thinking beyond your experience in your brainstorming activities. So I'm going to teach you next in the next module about a 6-3-3 brainstorming activity. Now, brainstorming has been the subject of lots and lots of studies really relatively recently, so I'll talk about that in the next one. Okay, so ask for and expect creativity. Make sure you recognize people for that. In specific meetings, they just stop and ask anybody what are their ideas. If put people in teams, build proposals around creativity, let more people participate in that, put information boards up, and celebrate this stuff. Okay, so there's 3 really stages of brainstorming that I kind of alluded to before. Most of the time, what I see is just people sitting around the table talking. And let me tell you, if you're just sitting around the table talking, you're not brainstorming. You're just freaking talking. So a lot of people say, no, that's unstructured brainstorming. That's not unstructured brainstorming unless you're capturing all these different ideas that are coming up. So unstructured brainstorming is more structured than talking simply because we're writing things down. But the thing that's been most effective is the structured brainstorming approach. Now, you should know that the findings from these studies that I just mentioned all seem to say that brainstorming in teams is less effective than you individually brainstorming. So if you sit alone quietly by yourself and write down your brainstorm, you'll create more ideas that are more effective than if a team is working together to do that same kind of thing. Teams, especially with unstructured brainstorming, we get into a lot of team dynamics issues where certain people dominate the group and other people are just really quiet and they don't want to really fully participate. Or we've got somebody else writing everything down and they don't write things just the way they hear them. They always put their little filter on it when they write things down. And all of those kind of break down the effectiveness of the ideas that come out of a structured brainstorming session. So let me introduce you to 6-3-3 brainstorming in this next module. And I want you to try this with your teams at work and tell me what you think.